Okay, you are live on YouTube, and I can resend Anne her link.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm just going to text her quickly. So, okay. Hi, everyone. And this is the Recreation Advisory Committee remote meeting, March 18th, 2021. I'll call it to order. We'll do a quick roll call to see who's here and make sure everything is ready to go. Tracy Murphy, Chair. Joan.
Here.
Sharon.
Here.
Brandon.
And I'm here, thank you.
Carol.
Here.
And Alan.
Here.
And Meth.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, and the first item on the agenda is the minutes for the last meeting, but I'm actually going to make a motion that we move that to the second item and move Judy Wilson to the first item, just out of respect for her time. Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan?
Aye.
Brandon?
Hi.
Sharon?
Aye.
Okay, and so we'll do that. So thank you, Judy, so much for joining us. I know that this has been an especially busy stretch for you, so we appreciate it. As I said, I'm sure the committee members will have questions, but generally what we're interested in and what maybe you can start by talking about is the programming aspect of your work, especially how you're planning things in regard to metrics, how you make, what sorts of metrics you use to make decisions and how they influence your programming. And then a little bit about communication that you have with participants. And then I think we'd also love to talk about ways to collaborate. So that's sort of a broad overview, but if you want to start by just giving us a sense of how you are developing programming and scheduling it and how all of that comes together at the COA.
That's pretty much what you kind of told me, so I'm prepared for it, and it's actually a pleasure not to be talking about COVID vaccines, which is really all our team has been doing for the last couple of months, really full time. So, so one of the things that I did is I kind of looked at our metrics for the 12 months that preceded our shutdown, because the last 12 months are not indicative of typical operations. So I thought that I'd give you kind of a picture of what we did over the 12 months prior to March 15th. So I went March 15th of 2020 to March 15th of 2019. So during that time, we have a software program that we use. It's like a database, and it helps us kind of keep track of things. So our budget is comprised of town appropriations, gifts. We have a state formula grant that we receive. We have private grants that we apply for. And we are supported by a fundraising organization called the Friends of the Orleans Council on Aging, or Orleans Senior Center. And I think I'm not forgetting anything. All of our programs are actually not supported by town appropriations, with one exception. Town appropriations pay for our supportive daycare program. So that's a program that provides care for people with dementia and Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. It provides respite for the caregivers, and it provides kind of social engagement for the people who attend. The town appropriations help support that program. And in exchange for that, we turn over 100% of our revenues to the town's general fund. So in the in FY, let's see, this is the time of year when it gets confusing what fiscal year I'm talking about. So in FY 20, which ended last June 30th, we turned over probably, I should have had the number, I want to say it's about, I shouldn't say about, We turned over all of the revenues. It was over $100,000. We turned that over to the town's general fund. We have intermunicipal agreements in place for that program. So we serve clients from the communities of Orleans, Brewster, Chatham, and Harwich. All of our other programs, which is like everything else, is supported financially in other ways. So either we charge fees to try and cover the cost of supporting the program. We write grants for the program. We get supporters for the program, or we use funds from our revolving fund for the program. So our revolving fund is really important in terms of our operations. So in that 12-month period prior to the shutdown, we served 1,908 people. Those are totally different people. So that's not like a duplicated count. That's an unduplicated count of the number of older adults that we served. Now, a small portion of that is out-of-town residents. We do allow out-of-town residents to participate in programs if it's not taking spots of Orleans residents. So the town taxpayer money isn't really paying for the program. If we have space available, then we let non-residents participate in the programs. So we have, so out of the programs we have, we consider, our database calls them events. We also have a transportation. I'm going to talk a little bit more detail because I think that's the thing you're really asking about, but I wanted to make sure I gave you a broad-based look at what we do. We provide a transportation program. So as some older adults age in place in the community, they're no longer able to drive. So we provide transportation to the grocery store and medical appointments and local errands on our senior center buses. And then we also have a volunteer network where we provide transportation. Obviously, COVID protocol has impacted all of that. We've been transporting one person at a time for safety reasons. But in that 12 months prior to the shutdown, we provided transportation to 214 Orleans seniors, and we provided 7,519 rides. Another really important part of our operations is our outreach program. So we have a social service coordinator and an outreach worker. And what they do is they really provide support for some of our most vulnerable residents. So they connect people with resources. So they'll help with applications for SNAP, which was formerly known as food stamps. They're trained to help with fuel assistance applications. They'll do any number of things related to connecting people with resources. We have a network of private pay providers that we provide to people, referrals. We work with elder services. And so in that 12 months prior to the shutdown, we served 416 Orleans seniors through our outreach program and provided 1,709 units of outreach service. So that's typically a contact. So it was over 1,700 contacts, separate contacts. We provide durable medical equipment loan to Orleans residents, regardless of age. A lot of joint replacement surgery is happening on the Cape now after accidents and different things. So we helped 222 Orleans residents through that program. That's not, we actually have under 60 people that we serve through that program, really because of joint replacement. We have a pretty robust volunteer program. We couldn't do all that we do if we didn't have the number of volunteers that we have. So in that 12 months preceding the shutdown, we had 132 volunteers helping us out. They do things like serving meals, providing transportation, helping with different programs. That's probably not too much different than Alan's experience, I'm sure. I know when my kids were younger, you know, volunteers were coaching the programs and things like that. So volunteer management is a big part of what we do. I think the senior center, probably our biggest problem prior to the pandemic is we were bursting at the seams. And I always used to say these are good problems to have. But our average attendance, daily attendance for the 12 months preceding the pandemic was 83. So that doesn't count staff. That's the number of public that walks into the building every day. Even during COVID, it's not been unusual for us to get 200 phone calls.
The last page.
So we have a lot of foot traffic having the building, and so that's a big part also of what we do. In terms of events, the events, we call them events simply because that's how our database categorizes them, but that's all of our programs and activities. So through our programs and activities, and this is so not day center, not transportation, and not outreach, we served 1,649 people participated in our programs and activities. Now, when we host a program like the Orleans Citizens Forum will come in here, we're not counting those people. There's no way that we can kind of capture stats for everything. So those are all of the programs and activities that people would have signed in for. So our database comes with the cards like you get at CVS or Stop and Shop that have barcodes. And it's a statewide system that senior centers are using now. And so when people come in, they scan in, they check in at the reception desk, they pick what they are here to attend. So it's a very accurate count. And then they'll pay at the desk if there's a payment for something that they're here for. So while there was 1,649 people that were served through our programs and activities, we had the total number of attendance at those things was 22,922. So what are those programs and activities? So we categorize things. We have civic activities, which might be a meeting of a local community group. We do community education. So that would be our educational programs. We do cultural events. So that would be, we have an art committee and we have exhibits. We have advocacy work that we do. So for instance, I'm trying to think what would fit under that. We have support groups. We have a lot of different support groups that meet here. We have professional services. So we have 3 separate attorneys that come in on a monthly basis and provide pro bono appointments and consultations for seniors. We do Shine Counseling, which is health insurance counseling for people on Medicare. Medicare's gotten kind of complicated and there's an open enrollment season every year. And depending on what medications a person is on and depending on what their kind of status is in terms of income, it's always every year kind of worth it looking at whether you're on the right plan for your needs because needs change as we age. So we do that, Shine Counseling. And then we have what we call wellness programs, which is a lot of our social and recreational programs. And then we also have straight recreation programs. So for our recreation programs, we count our fitness programs as wellness programs and our recreation kind of separately. So for our recreational programs, we have things like amateur radio, we have painting groups, we have quilting groups, book clubs, chess, cribbage. We had an intro to sailing program. We have other art things. We have a Mac users group, Mahjong, movie programs. We have outdoor, we do some trips. We went to Heritage Gardens. We did, trying to think of what else is on here. And then we do some kind of social programs like for the holidays. We have special luncheons and with entertainment. We have an annual barbecue. We have an LGBT seniors group that meets one evening a month, 10 times a year. So that's kind of what we consider recreation. And then we have wellness, and that's really our fitness programs. So for our fitness programs, Alan does a men's fitness program for us. We have had 2 different chair yoga programs. We've had 2 different kind of yoga classes. We have morning fitness, which is more aerobics, kind of high level fitness. We try to offer chair fitness programs 5 days a week because we think that making sure that we're addressing the wellness needs of people who are aging and of different ability is really important to aging successfully. So that's something that we really invest in. I'm trying to think of what else I'm missing. Fitness classes are extraordinarily popular here. We served in those 12 months, 970 people through our fitness programs. We have a lot. So I used to think before we had this database, I'm a geek for stats, by the way, just to let you know, because I do think that I think that information is power, because it really lets you know what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, what people like, what they don't like. So it really lets you kind of fine tune, and it really has helped us figure out what people want from us. And we've invested it in it. And because we invested in that and evaluated the data, it's, I think, really boosted our, attendance and participation in programs. But 970 people, older adults participate in our fitness programs over a 12-month period of time. And we don't even have one of the most popular fitness programs that most senior centers have, and that's pickleball. Pickleball alone can bring in over 100 people. So, it's pretty significant. So our fitness classes, we pay our instructors a fee per class, and we collect money from participants for each class. We try and make sure that classes break even. We do have our lower level fitness classes probably don't always break even, but our popular classes cover it. So we're not making huge amounts of money, but we're not looking to. I mean, we serve people who are generally speaking on fixed incomes. We do try and make sure that money doesn't prevent somebody from participating in a program. So that's something else that is important to us. Most of the fitness classes meet more than once a week. Like I said, Chair Fitness is 5 days a week. We offer one yoga is twice a week. The other yoga is twice a week. Morning fitness is twice a week. Men's fitness is one that's only once a week. We don't have the most robust attendance in that class. We have had to close like our yoga classes because some of them get very popular. Our morning fitness class as well. Sometimes we have to close it. Overcrowding in our fitness classes has been the most persistent problem that we have had. And when we're too successful, then people complain. So it's this balance that we have to figure out. So I'll leave time for questions, but you asked about communications, and I think this probably is going to show up backwards, but we do a newsletter. We do it bi-monthly, so 6 times a year. We produce it internally. We send it to a printer, print ready to keep the costs down. So we've learned how to use Publisher. That's a primary form of communication to date. I will say that we're moving towards a social media strategy because our younger seniors, I think the other thing that's important, I'm always aware of, but people I talk to may not, seniors are not a generation. 60 is not 70, is not 80, is not 90. So we serve a multi-generational group of people. Somebody who's still working at 62 is coming in and just wants to know what they have to do about Medicare. But somebody who's 75 may have a lot more time and may be more active. But the needs of the different generations of older adults really varies. And we try and make sure we offer something for as many people as we can. There are certainly people who never come here. And then there are some people who come here often. But I think the fact that we've served 1,900 in over a 12-month period indicates, I think, that we're doing something right. So there's probably about 3,600, 3,700 older adults in our community. So I think that's a pretty high percentage. So we've relied on print media. It's very important. And it dictates our programming schedule. So because it's every other month, when it goes to print, everything for those 2 months has to be locked and loaded. So it frustrates people in the community. I know that there are groups that will, 2 weeks before they're having an event say, could you put this in your newsletter? Well, my newsletter went to the printer 6 weeks ago. So it's not helpful from that point of view, but it makes us try and communicate with those groups more frequently to make sure that we're abreast of what's going on and we can share things that are of importance to the group that we serve. So our newsletter includes information on programs that we offer. And certainly like this last year, it's changed quite a bit. We provide fitness classes on Channel 18. Sarah's been really helpful in getting that, and we film new classes to kind of keep it fresh. I worked with the other councils on aging in the 5 communities covered by Lower Cape TV, and with Lower Cape TV's help, we developed a senior fitness hour every day that we worked on. We've done a lot of virtual programs, and the councils on aging on the Cape developed a collaborative that allowed us to kind of share programs so that we were really leveraging resources so that we didn't all have to do it all. We have health and wellness information that we try and provide. We do meal programs here for the duration of the pandemic. We have committed to providing people with affordable, well-balanced meals at home. It's allowed us to provide an eyes-on check on people who are a little bit more vulnerable. And also a lot of people as they age aren't cooking quite the same as they did in their younger years. So, and with restaurants closed and shopping kind of limited, it was a way to make sure we were addressing nutritional needs, and isolation issues as well as food issues. We try and provide community news in our newsletter. We try and provide Medicare information on a regular basis, health information. Our friends help support our newsletter. They pay for the postage. We use money from the town for our newsletter and money from grants as well. We have cut down the size of our newsletter this year during the pandemic just because our programming has changed so much, but it's been kind of critical. We feel like we utilize our town webpage as much as we can. It's, and I know Alan is one department that kind of uses an independent resource, that links, and we've talked about whether that's something we should do, but I know the town's looking at that issue right now. And we have live links in our on our web page that will go to either on-demand fitness classes, or it will go to newsletters or different kinds of things like that. So we try and use the web page. We are now moving, now that younger seniors are coming with tech, who are more tech savvy. One of the hard things during this whole pandemic has been the technology divide of the people that we serve. So, our 60 to 75-year-olds are more tech savvy, used to the technology, want to get information quickly, wouldn't mind receiving information that way, but this is new for us. And although staff that work here may be tech savvy, we've always given the information the way people rely on it. We are developing a social media strategy because we know that constant contact, and we're trying to decide, I'm not sure Facebook is really what we want to invest in, whether we'll invest in Instagram. So we're working on that now in terms of communication. You asked about collaboration. So there are 15 communities on the Cape. We have a collaborative called COAST, which stands for the Councils on Aging Serving Together. The directors from all 15 communities meet on a regular basis. It's a very formal group. We have bylaws. I have served as chair of that group probably too many years, probably 5 of the last 7 years. But it's been a really important group. It's been important for program collaboration, idea sharing, and support. I mean, and Alan may feel like I do, a council on aging is a little bit of an odd fit with municipal government because our identity is kind of social services, which is not really a municipal model. So we've had to kind of create our own network of support because there's really no one at town hall I can go to ask if we're having, a problem. I mean, we collaborate with the police and fire department. We have worked hard over the last decade to have formal liaisons with both of those departments because when we need them, we need them. And so we communicate regularly. The social service coordinator here is responsible really for communicating regularly with the liaison from the fire department and the police department, so that when we need a well-being check from the police department, or the fire department is seeing somebody who's kind of a frequent flyer and it's about falls, we communicate and share and try and use each other to make sure that we're not letting people fall through the cracks. We also collaborate with the health department, and there's a small group of people who meet to discuss, health issues that may pertain to older adults, and we'll bring Bob Canning from the health department. We'll bring other department, representatives in as needed, depending on what it is, the issue that we're working on. And I'm also pretty tied to the Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. They are our aging service access point, which means that they receive the federal and state dollars for aging services on the Cape. We have a contract with them in place for our supportive daycare program for reimbursement. And so we meet with them regularly. We meet with the Regional Transit Authority regularly because we have a lease agreement for one of our vehicles. The town owns one and we lease the other one. It's the most economical way to kind of support our transportation program. So we meet with them pretty regularly. We meet with County Health and Human Services on a monthly basis. So that's another collaboration that we're involved in. And I feel bad because I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. But I don't think that we could do what we do without the collaboration. And I see Anne is on the call, and I have relied on, the Medical Reserve Corps, and Anne has been that person sometimes during this pandemic when we've been looking for information and trying to solve problems. So I am shameless about calling somebody and asking for help. And a lot of programs that we do, and I'm sure it's Alan's experience too, I'm not above begging and getting free whatever I can. So I think that's a pretty decent synopsis. I have papers spread out to make sure I covered what I wanted to cover, but I'd love to answer questions. I hope that this is what you were interested in.
That was great. Thank you very much. I think you covered so much, and I'm sure I already see hands, so I'll throw it to Joan.
Judy, that was fabulous. I'm a huge supporter of Council on Aging. I hope I can get my mother there again once the pandemic's over. So a couple of questions. Tracy and I were throwing around ideas of how do we bring the older folks in town together with the younger folks in town, and even simple ideas like games of catch, things that have been happening now that the pandemic's going on. And it seems like one of our biggest challenges, and I think you said it again, is just lack of space. And do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. I'm in better shape than Alan. Quite truthfully, we have a senior center.
Nice.
It's not huge. We use every square inch of it when we're programming in person. And I am very much in support of intergenerational programming.
Okay.
But I believe that for a program to be truly an intergenerational program, it can't be a program that benefits one generation over the other. And at times there have been, we've been approached by people to do programs that were really intended to solve a problem for one that didn't really have enough benefit. And because space is an issue here, I have to make tough decisions sometimes. But you mentioned catch, and I know over the pandemic, I saw this wonderful story. I think
Yes, that's what we thought. That's what Tracy and I
the
thought.
story down in Florida of the guys who missed playing on his senior softball team and went to the park. Yeah, so I would be extremely receptive at doing, programs like that. We only have had a program coordinator on our staff for 2 years. So prior to that I was coordinating programs on top of other things. So it has let us expand and do some kind of creative things. We did a virtual tour of Fenway Park, different kinds of things like that. And I definitely see opportunities that we could collaborate with community resources more now that Alan has a little bit of time, you know, there are opportunities there. I'm very excited. I was very excited to hear that the pickleball plans were in place because I took a sabbatical, if you didn't know, to Harwich for a year. That's what I'm calling it. And pickleball is just absolutely huge there. And so I definitely think that we could talk about meaningful collaborative programs.
Great.
We had, in our past, we did some intergenerational collaboration with the charter school when it was here in Orleans. That was pretty good. So we're definitely receptive to it. And, you know, we look forward to the in-person stuff. We're in the process right now of starting the scale up plan. We have not had any direction from the state, but that's been my experience for the whole entire last year, is that it always comes about 8 weeks after you need it. But so right now, because that newsletter drives our process, we need to, so our newsletter will go to the printer by the beginning of the 3rd week in April, and all of our May, June programs have to be planned. But so here it is getting towards the latter part of March, and I still don't have information from the state on what will be allowed and won't be allowed. So this is where you really get stuck in terms of trying to make decisions. I can make decisions, you know, cross my fingers and hope that the planets align, and then we can be in a pickle. So there's a little bit of a gamble there with that.
Great.
Other questions for Judy? Anne?
Thank you, Judy. We've been using the term holistic. Boy, you're living the holistic senior center, and we've been using the term community center without walls, and yours is town-wide, Cape-wide. So impressive. Lot to learn from how you've met the needs and enjoyed the process. The 2 things. One is one natural thing this spring might be an intergenerational pickleball round robin, where we matched less than seniors with seniors and paired up teams on those nets down there. The other is, and I deeply apologize for my computer snafu or whatever happened. If you had mentioned how do you use your revolving fund?
So our revolving fund really supports our programs. So I mentioned, I think at the beginning, to be honest, Anne, I'm not sure when you came in, but the town doesn't appropriate any funds for programs. So we're kind of on our own. So I have written a grant for $400 when we needed new tires on our bus, and I had no money in the budget. And I just received a $20,000 grant from the Community Benefits Grant Program at Cape Cod Healthcare for our respite supportive day program. So there is money out there. The revolving fund, we collect fees. So what we try and do when we have a program starting is we look at what it's going to cost us. We look at what our break-even participation is. And then we try and determine what I call our carrying point is. So we'll carry a program. When I first came here back a while ago, I wanted to try some new fitness programs. And I can remember I brought in some new fitness instructors that had experience at local gyms. And they came in, and one of our really longest term, most successful, really incredible fitness instructors is Becky. And when Becky first came here, Becky's young, she wore fluorescent colors, she wore gym clothes, and everyone was like, I don't know, this isn't like a senior center. But I knew that if we stuck with it, it would grow. So I had a carrying point where we knew how long we could carry that class, and either it would fly or it wouldn't. So you have to invest, and Alan, maybe this is your experience too. There are some programs that don't break even right away. So I'll carry them, I'll commit to carrying them for 6 months and then make a decision at month 5 about where they're going. If I think a program is important in terms of general health and wellness, we're always looking at the things. Falls are a serious health risk for older adults, and they really change someone's health. So we're always looking at what we can do. So Tai Chi is one of those things. It's a little bit, it's a very popular program. You can't have too many people in the class, so it barely breaks even. But then I'll have this other class, that does really well. So as long as I'm covering the nut, then I don't have to have as strict a carrying point. We have tried some other programs. We had like a meditation yoga program that I don't know. It never found its niche, and we had to let go of it because it went too long without breaking even, and I couldn't justify spending the money for the number of people that were participating. So some of it's trial by error. We all, I love trying something. If you don't try it, you don't know if it's going to work or not, to be perfectly honest. Sometimes you have a great idea and it really flies. And sometimes you think you have a great idea and it doesn't fly. So we've tried different things, but the revolving fund is critical. So it's, the town doesn't dump money in that, we put the money in. So we put the money in, we collect money for our programs, we put it in the revolving fund, and then anytime our programs cost money, we spend the money from the revolving fund. So it's a self-funded revolving account, and it really works very well.
Any other questions for Judy? Carol?
Yeah, that was wonderful, Judy. That's a good example of how you use the metrics, talking about the break-even carry cost for a new program. How else do you use the metrics? Like, do you set goals for growth in programs? Do you use it for budgeting? And where do you publish your metrics?
I do use it for budgeting. Like I said, I'm a little bit of a geek for the numbers because it really tells me. There's sometimes that I'll think, one of the things that's really surprised me is our database lets us see the age of the people participating. And I think in general, there was this assumption that we were only serving people who were like 75 plus. But one of the things we found out almost right away when our database came in and we were able to look back at, our first period of time is that we had a lot of 60 somethings participating in our fitness programs. So we were serving in some programs an older generation of seniors, and in some programs a younger than we thought we were. And I use the data because the data, it really does kind of tell you sometimes where you should invest. Mm-hmm. If you have lots of people, and sometimes it's obvious. I mean, if you can, and Alan's been here, if you come here on a Tuesday or a Thursday prior to pandemic morning, and you were here to get a walker, you might turn around and leave because the lobby has 35 people in it. They're waiting for morning fitness to end so they can get into yoga. And then we have 35 people ready to attend the chair fitness, and it can be madness. So some of it's obvious and some of it's not. I use the stats a lot for some of our other programs, not the recreation and fitness programs, but for transportation. We categorize as much as we can, we categorize something. So we'll categorize our rides. So I know, are people going to the grocery store or are they more going to doctor's appointments? Are they going to the pharmacy? Like, what are they doing? So we categorize the information and that's how it gets helpful. Also with our outreach, we do the same thing. We're trying to see who's calling us. Like, are we getting calls from caregivers? Are we getting calls from older adults? Are we getting calls from community resources? Who are we referring to? Are most of our referrals about housing? Are most of our referrals about financial or health insurance matters? So the database really allows us to look at what we're doing and fine tune things. Sometimes there are patterns that we don't see that, when you manipulate the data, you see that you wouldn't know day to day.
Thanks. And I'm a Becky fan personally, so.
Okay, there you go. See? I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but everybody, I can remember all
Yeah,
the
I
raised
was.
eyebrows.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great
Becky,
story.
and she's just the most incredible person.
It's fabulous. Yeah. Thank you.
Are there other questions for Judy while she's here? Okay, thank you again. So much of what you said resonated with things that we've been talking about. So I hope we can follow up with some of these ideas and certainly with the opportunities to plan some programming together. But we really, really appreciate the time and the information and the work that you do.
Excellent.
It's inspiring. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. And I know Meph knows I have a lot of passion for the work and I have a passionate team, which I'm very blessed to have. So
Yes.
thank you very much for the opportunity
Yes.
to talk about it.
Judy is really
Thank you.
impressive.
Before
Thank
you
you,
go,
Judy.
Judy, I just want to make sure that everyone who might be listening realizes what a fantastic job you do at the Council on Aging. I mean, it really is an amazing place.
Thank you very much. I always want to say, though, I don't do it alone. I have an amazing team of staff and volunteers that support what we do. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, I just want to note in the minutes that Brandon left and Evan joined. So if Anne has that down, and we'll move on to the minutes for the February 18th, 2021 meeting. Everyone received a draft earlier this week and had a chance to look over them. Are there comments on the minutes? Or yes, Anne?
I think you make a motion and it's second and then we
Okay.
discuss. Sorry.
Motion, then thank you. Motion to approve the minutes of the February 18th, 2021 RAC meeting.
Yeah, motion to approve.
And a second,
Second the motion.
thank you. Any comments? Anne?
I wrote the minutes, but I have some errors that I will correct if I may, and I apologize that I'm using meeting time to do so. The first is after the section about Joan reviewing the CPC process, the sentence that begins with revision of the RAC charge was discussed, including the draft Tracy and, that's kind of hanging out in the breeze. It should say Tracy and Anne presented, which added a, and then scratch adding more. I'll say more if you don't have that, but
Mhm.
okay. And then there's an ending of a discussion that includes the calendar in the very end of the paragraph. It's the revision of the RAC charge.
Mhm.
Tracy will work on a draft and discuss it at, and it says the budget meeting, but it should have said another meeting,
Okay.
not the budget meeting. So I propose those two changes.
Okay. Any other comments or changes for the minutes? Okay, then I will make a motion to approve the minutes with the two changes that Anne just went over for us.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Evan.
Abstain.
Okay, that's right, Evan wasn't here last week. Okay, thank you. Moving along to the Recreation Director's report. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We have some spring activities beginning next month. We have tennis for age groups from grade 2 up through middle school. We have adult tennis that's being run on Saturdays. We have an adult fitness program in the evenings that's being run, in addition to the senior program that we run Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. T-ball will be running in May through June. Girls softball will be running about the same time, middle of May through about early May through the end of June. Registration is open for all of those right now. Numbers look actually pretty good for most of those programs, with the exception of the adult fitness at the moment. April vacation at the moment, pardon me, I have 2 programs being run. Skating at Charles Moore Arena 2 days. One is Tuesday, the 20th, I believe, and then Thursday, the 22nd. There's an hour each day for skating. We have 2 mornings, I believe, Tuesday and Friday, in which we have a soccer program running from 10 a.m. to noon, in which we're having the 2 fields at the school. The kids can show up and we'll play some games, run some drills. And that's up for registration as well. Summer at the moment, we kind of like Judy, waiting for guidelines. The Red Cross is supposed to send out recommendations this coming week. And as far as summer recreation, I am planning on the typical morning program that we've run in the past, running this in the summer for the 2 programs, the elementary and the middle school. However, just waiting on some state guidance as to what, if any, restrictions there'll be. Questions coming from parents are, will the children have to wear masks? And the answer at the moment is yes, they will. I don't know what's going to happen as we get closer to July. That could change, and if it does, then that goes out to the people saying, you know, these are the new guidelines. So we're waiting on those guidelines. Regardless of the guidelines, I'm planning on a summer full recreation program with as close to full staff as we had in 2019. I am in the process of finalizing the Easter egg hunt. That will go on. It will not be an Easter egg hunt in which, as some of you recall, the Seek Farms that was done. We're going to be doing more of a drive-by style in which the parents and the kids will not get out of cars. You'll find that everyone is doing that or even less. Some are doing simply a virtual Easter program, but we'll do a drive-by. Still working on some details. All of these activities, including that, require, depending on where it is, if it's town land or conservation land, conservation people to get involved to okay it, Board of Health. So finalizing some of that, I would anticipate that it would be finalized by the early part of this coming week, maybe Monday. And advertisement will go out like I normally do through the school, through the website blast. Probably have time to get it into the Chronicle. So that's all set. I did send out a flyer, a recreation brochure that was sent out this morning, I believe, through the rec program. And that will go out again on Wednesday through the elementary school. Any questions?
Joan and then Sharon.
Alan, last time we met, you said you had someone that can teach pickleball. Is there a reason why we don't have a spring pickleball, since I know it's in demand?
Yes. The pickleball instructor, due to COVID, has chosen to retire from pickleball teaching. So he is not available. He is not, I've had this person for 3 years, with the exception of this year, the last year. So he is not going to be doing pickleball anywhere. So that was my go-to guy. So my go-to guy is gone from the business. It
And
doesn't mean pickleball won't run. It doesn't mean pickleball won't run, or it doesn't, but his function was an instructor. He taught
Right.
lessons. So I mean, that can be easily done again with someone who may teach the program, teach lessons.
so is it active, Alan, that you're actually looking for someone for
Yeah.
pickleball?
Yeah. Yeah, and programs would not be this time of year. Programs would be more, instruction would be more towards May through June.
Oh, okay. All right, that was my question.
Sharon?
So thank you for getting the brochure out, Alan. There's just I have a couple of comments. One, there's just a small error on the date for the skating. It says it's a February date. That was probably just an oversight.
Oh, really?
2/22. And in terms of the T-ball, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on having T-ball in the evening on a Monday from 6 to 7 for little kids, and why not on a Saturday morning or earlier in the day? Because that's kind of an odd time for young children to be coming out to play a sport.
It was set up that way based on the last couple of years, obviously not last year, but that's what we did in the past. And it just coincides with like girls softball, which would be running in the same time frame, mid-May to June. They're more in the evening as well, with coaches having a 5:30, 6:30, 7 o'clock practice and games, basically the same thing. Just giving parents a little more time to go home, grab some dinner, come out and let the kids play. We really encourage and get some parent support in that. Like, parents know that if they've got really young kids, that it's hard to take 12 kids that are really learning something from the basics. So the parents are encouraged and really do get involved. And it just seemed like it's worked in the past. So I didn't think of any different time frame, simply because that's what I've done in the past, and it's been fairly successful.
It just seemed late to me that usually parents are feeding their kids and then they're taking a bath and they're going to bed, and that time from
Well, I
6 to
have
7.
quite a bit signed up. So
Did they? Okay.
I mean, I look at it that way as well, but there's a pretty good sign up.
I would have been in Alan's camp. I only got home at 6 o'clock, so
Right, but
anything late was good.
you
for
don't
me.
have a 3-year-old.
No, but when they were 3, anything late was good for me. It was
I think, maybe it's something that we can think about with future surveys and exit surveys and that sort of thing, is what time, because I, like Sharon, I don't need to spend time with my children after a certain time of night. It's time to wrap. They don't get prettier as the day goes on, and bringing them out in public after a certain hour isn't always well advised. So I would have been an early bird too. So it'd be another thing worth considering. What works for most parents. Yep, Joan.
Tracy, I think some of the metrics that Judy talked about, that's the sort of stuff that helps us look at things. And I loved how, I'm a big metrics person also, and I loved how Judy measured everything. And I think that's critical for any program, to understand it and to grow it, or to understand what to cut. So.
And on that, Alan, how close are we to getting some metrics from the rec programming? I know it's something you've been working on.
Well, I have been. I mean, I can provide metrics. I'm not sure to the degree of, this doesn't help, but here are the metrics right here that I have so far. And there's, I think, like, I don't know. I mean, 11, there's like 13 or 14 pages of this, basically just breaking down the different programs, how many people are in the programs. And I believe it's broken down by resident, non-resident. This is an extensive task. So I mean, Joan, I know
Right.
you have.
Alan, you want to send it to me? I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, maybe I mean, I'm not going to be able to sit down and take 100.
Alan, why don't you
Believe me,
send
there's
it?
140 programs.
Why
Some
don't you
of them
send it to
were
me?
a soccer program or something that ran a one-day thing on ice skating at 2 years ago. But I mean, I'm not going to be able to break this down into ages and boys and girls and compare
Alan,
it to
can
the
you-
following year. So
Right,
you
and
I
I,
concede.
If you send me what you have, Alan, I could take a stab at trying to organize
Okay.
it for you and send it back to you before you
Perfect.
share it and put
Yeah.
it in some sort of analytical framework. And then, so if you send me whatever you have, I'll give it my best shot.
Perfect. Yeah.
okay, that's great, Joan. Thank you. Anne?
The, in line with the metrics, I thought maybe given next month's meeting is, we would be looking back on winter. So for this past winter, it would, I think a nice tradition in the committee is to hear seasonally the metrics of number of participants. And I would really like at the same time, and maybe with Sharon's help, looking at the budget in a way that I can understand, which is perhaps dumbing down, but how aligned was it with the anticipated budget? What came from the budget? What came from the revolving fund? You know, where'd we start? Where'd we end? Just to have a handle on it. Can I also just, I had a couple other questions. One is, I was sorry, Alan, when you're talking about the Easter egg hunt, what's the date?
My plan at the moment is
I think Easter's
April the
4th.
3rd.
Is that the Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't mention the spring day. Is that still on?
You know, I didn't. I'm probably going to send out a notice in delaying that. State regulations, a lot of the rules and regulations for gatherings, I mean, it did change on March 11th, but I think the gatherings that I'm looking for and would hope for, it's going to be better serving us to have a fun day if we're not as totally concerned about distancing, which is the concern too, or the issue with the Easter egg hunt, is postpone that. Just put it to a different time of year, maybe when the weather's totally nicer, maybe a Saturday in May. The goal was to bring people together. It was to bring kids with sort of a little bit like, I think everyone is thinking, if we bring generational people, grandparents come out with kids, parents, and there's a different variety of activities going on, but with those activities come sanitizing of equipment and watching social distancing. So on the safe side and on the sanity side, I'm just going to let that be sent out as a postponement.
It's certainly understandable that it's hard to pull off, but it's, I think, is it still posted? Was it in the?
Not posted anywhere, no.
No.
There was a flyer though, right?
Yeah.
There was an email.
had
No,
been on
it
the
was,
website.
it was in a newsletter, yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll
Okay,
that'll be sent out on Wednesday with the middle school, the school blast
elementary school, yeah.
and follow up on my rec emails that we are postponing.
Okay,
Although isn't this weekend, the 21st?
No, it was sent for the 27th.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
My note in the initial newsletter was, we're going to celebrate the first day of spring, which is May 20th. However, we're going to delay it a week because it's usually winter on the first day of spring, which it probably will be. I think it's not snowing yet, but I can see it raining heavy. So that was the kind of like the catchy thing was, we'll delay spring a week, but we'll delay it about 6 weeks.
okay.
Well, I'm still here. The, just following up on the exit survey, as a way of gathering useful information when things start a little bit more like normal, like T-ball. Shall we get that kind of thing going so we can look back and see if people like the time and so forth?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. I think that could be a really useful way to start to, apply some metrics like Judy was talking about, and just something that sort of becomes part of, at the end of the season, you get an email, to answer a couple questions. People really like the programming, so I think we get lots of positive feedback, but we might get a few suggestions. Everything from scheduling to more frequent practices, and just to give us a little direction, it would be really interesting. Yeah.
Would
Sharon?
that be a way
sorry.
to do it through the email? Do you gather emails, Alan, when people register so that you can follow up with them?
That comes with the registration, so I know who's
Okay,
in it.
yeah.
Because what I will do, for instance, like with tennis that's coming up, and I think the other sports that are coming up, T-ball, is I send out an email to all of the participants. If you're an adult participating in tennis, you'll get it. If you're an adult registering a child, you'll get the registration. You'll get the email from me regarding the registration for the child. And in it, in the beginning, we'll let, as a reminder, all of the, at that point, COVID rules that are in effect, which would be, please make sure that your child has a mask. Please make sure that your child brings their own water or beverage, and that type of stuff. So then I can follow up because I have all those emails.
Great, great. Thank you.
Sharon?
Two things. One is just in line with the exit surveys. I was wondering if maybe that's something that we want to make a motion that we would like to see the exit surveys start with the spring programming, and make a vote that as a committee that we would like to see that happen. My other question is that I noticed that some of the programs, particularly the adult tennis, has 17 people registered and it's planned for the OES courts. So I'm just wondering, in terms of social distancing and running sports where you have 3 courts and 17 adults, how that is going to work.
It will work. It will work, Sharon. It will work.
Well, I'm just thinking that the Eldridge courts have more space. That's why I'm asking, as opposed to the OES.
When the time is closer and we see the numbers,
Okay.
and we see what we have to do, Sharon, on a day-to-day basis, we'll make those decisions and make those adjustments in every program. So similar to what I sort of just said to you and the whole committee a couple of minutes ago about the family day that I was planning on in late March. after putting this in my head and thinking this would be something that I can coordinate and put together. In fact, last month I spoke to the group and I said, it would be nice to have a couple of volunteers help. As we're getting closer and closer, I realize this is something that is not really going to be feasible to do with the amount of people who could come. And I don't want to have a family day and say to people, well, I'm sorry, it's cut at 100 people, and have to turn people away. So the same thing with tennis and any other sport. I mean, those things are figured out, Sharon, at the appropriate time as to what the plan is going to be.
Okay, well, it's just 2 weeks away. That's why I'm asking.
I wouldn't, if I were you, I would, yeah, let me, that's my job to handle that.
All right.
Sharon, would you like to make a motion?
I'm allowed to. Sure. So I'd like to make a motion that we would like to see exit surveys being used starting the spring programming to get feedback as to how those programs went and who was participating.
Okay,
Second.
second. Anne, any discussion?
I think we should work with Alan to see what's best for him and his staff, if the survey should be online or if the survey should be handed out. Because a lot of times if you hand paper out, people don't hand it back in this day and age. So maybe, Alan, there's something we could do with MyRec that's
Yeah,
automated.
I think I'm capable of putting that together.
Right.
With an email,
and
yeah.
getting it done. I don't know that you need to make a vote to, I mean, if.
Okay. We just want to make it easy, Alan. I know
Yeah,
MyRec is not that
and I
easy.
appreciate that. But I think I can handle that.
Okay, great.
And if I
Okay.
can't, Joan, I'm going to
Give me
call
a
you
call.
and see
Okay.
what you can do to help me,
Okay, great.
because you've always been there.
Okay, great. You just let me know and I'll do that.
Absolutely.
I have another question while
Oh,
we're here.
can we I just want to finish the first. I just want to
Oh,
finish the
no,
motion.
it's a question about the surveys for spring.
Oh, with the exit survey, yep.
The exit survey.
Go ahead.
Do you want that to start for the April recess, Sharon?
With all the spring programming, so it would be the tennis instruction, which starts April 6th, and then that week, and then it would be the
spring break also,
yeah.
the activities, okay.
Yeah. Alan did do this before. We did this in the summer.
end of the
program in
summer, yeah.
2019,
Okay.
So it is familiar ground.
It's
so
sort of the
all-
same questions every time
Okay,
and for every program.
great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. We'll take a roll call. Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Sharon, Evan.
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else for Alan? Carol?
Yeah, Alan, is the program MyRec similar to Judy mentioning that the program she uses for the COAs is the same statewide for COAs? So she's able to, do the metrics because really the software is doing the metrics? Or is MyRec totally different and that's you don't have the equivalent of a lot of rec departments having an identical program statewide that she mentioned?
I do not have an identical program that's statewide. It's
Yeah.
a lot of the locals are using MyRec, like for instance, Brewster,
Mhm.
Eastham. I don't think they use anything.
Mhm.
I think they use the town website.
Mhm.
So it's
Mm.
and it's MyRec is one of a couple of different rec serving websites to help manage your finances and your registrations and your
Mm.
newsletters and what have you.
Yeah.
Sandwich just moved to MyRec, Carol. When I was working with Alan, we looked at who's using MyRec.
Oh.
And
Does
there's
it have a report writing function in it? Most,
that's what Alan was going to look into, is sort of what
Great,
sort
yeah,
of
that
reports
makes
it could
good-
pull.
that makes good sense, yeah.
It's a pretty basic program. It does more money collection.
It's too bad. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
But I'm sure there could be something we could call them.
Okay, anything else for the Recreation Director's report? Okay, The 139 Main Street update from Ann and Carol. We all received a copy of a draft of a partnership statement. So Ann and Carol, do you want to walk us through what's happened in the last month or so?
Why don't I start and then Carol can clean it up. We met on March 2nd with the representatives for Centers for Culture and History in Orleans, otherwise known as formerly known as the Historical Society. This was our, I believe, third meeting. We met with Jay Straddle, the chair of the board, and Bill Wiebel, a board member. And then this time, Maxine Minkoff joined us, and she is the new executive director of, as they call it, CHO. And the purpose of the meeting was to follow up and discuss further our possible collaboration between both committees. They also, as planned, presented to us the partnership statement that their board had approved. They wrote it, their board approved it, and it's now coming to our committee for our discussion and approval or modification. So that's one, and then a number of other things we can talk about, but perhaps we can pause and look at the draft. And do you want me to read it or have?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. The Centers for Culture and History in Orleans and the Orleans Recreation Advisory Committee are committed to developing a partnership regarding the joint use of town property surrounding the annex at 139 Main Street, abutting CHO's meeting house. In addition to each party continuing with its own events and activities, this partnership will facilitate coordinated planning, land use, and hosting of events that meet the missions of both CHO and ORAC, i.e. family walks, certain recreation activities, biking to historic spots, etc. Co-scheduling of activities will help assure the efficient use of space and the availability of adequate parking. The partners will strive to host projects and activities that appeal to all age groups and to varied Orleans resident and visitor interests, thus encouraging people to gather at this cultural and historic center of the town. And a number of other things and lots of, as we said, creative juices flowed during the meeting about the possibilities, which we can talk about further, or we can, what do you think, Tracy? Should we discuss this agreement first and then go from there?
So I love this. I would also like to see something put in here about the Council on Aging, especially after talking to Judy. I love what she said about, the integrational programs. That's got to be beneficial to all. And so I'm wondering whether or not you put in working in partnership with the Council on Aging and
that's a good point. What we talked about, and Carol can say more, we talked about the importance of collaboration. They didn't specifically at that meeting say the Council on Aging, but that makes a whole lot of sense, especially after hearing Judy. They did talk about the Cultural Council and then a number of appropriate collaboration. I think the point that was made was we would be committed to collaborating, but that the two drivers of the vision would be our two committees. And maybe we could add a sentence like that. But Carol, what are your thoughts?
I thought the partnership was around use of 139 Main being right next door to their building and the collaborations that might flow from being next door to that. And the cultural group council is involved because they're part of the show. They're not in discussions yet, but the 3 folks we talked to said they intended to speak with other people, including the cultural council. And so I wonder whether the COA would just be a separate and similar partnership between us, not around when he says the annex building, he means the one that the DPW was in temporarily when everything was under construction. So he's really referring to that 139 Main property, not townwide. Well, and if it is townwide, we should clarify that with him, because that's not the way I understood it. So you and I don't know.
The point of the COA and that collection of generations, we actually, when we were brainstorming a little bit, said, one of the activities that would lend itself well, because they'll have a spot for outdoor assemblies, that people who have a long maritime history, generations of, or people who have knowledge of the waters, or life-saving services and so forth. And that actually would be a natural, we would connect with the COA, because that's a good way to find these people. Right.
Yeah, that sounds fine. It didn't come up in discussion, so I think we would need to clarify it to make sure they understand it the same way before going in that direction.
This is a draft, so we could just put a sentence that that could go back to their board, that
Yeah.
collaboration.
Sorry to
with
say
the-
that, but I'm just not clear. And I think it would be great. It would be great. I'm not poo-pooing it at all, but I'm just not sure. They seem to be very
Convey
specific.
to you the sense that they're very collaborative.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
This is to be honest, one of the reasons to have this partnership statement was, in a way, to lay claim to the piece of Orleans property, so that the various agencies in town and committees and deciders knew that there were plans being made, so that somebody can come up with the idea of selling it, for instance, which has been flirted with at various meetings this past year.
I don't want to complicate it. It just seemed like a perfect time after hearing from Judy about that whole collaboration and making sure we can do this intergenerational correctly. And I think there's a lot of opportunities at that spot.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just not clear whether they might want separate agreements with the cultural folks and with the COA. And I think they'd absolutely be open to it, but I'm not sure they'd want it under the same one or not. And they might not. I'm not
We
sure.
meet with the same group next week, and we can tell them the flavor of the discussion of how important and valuable that collaboration
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is helpful from the committee tonight for you before you meet with them next week, in addition to the idea about COA? What other thoughts are you looking for from us?
If maybe Carol's prepared to tell you a little more about the spot.
Okay.
And then, so the kind of input you have, and then I think we just need to end with a vote agreeing that with the partnership statement.
Okay, Carol?
Yeah. So the spot, I don't know if I can open share my screen or not. I don't know if I can. We have a plot plan from them. Anyway, so they have a future plan of bringing the 32-500 boat that was in the movie that is so famous out of Rock Harbor in the future for safety, and getting it undercover at this site, sort of on the side toward the town hall, with a cover, and not yet clear whether it's a full building or sort of an amphitheater with just a roof and some seating. But that's not going to happen for 5 years. So the new executive director, who's got great experience and very enthused, is talking about little boats, replicas of that in the meantime. And then you begin to think about, well, that might lend itself to a kid's play area, like a climbing structure. We also talked with them, just brainstorming about a fitness path through the woods, because part of the site is thicket and woods, and you could clear a path through that without clearing the whole thing. We talked about maritime themed story book trail on that same path. They loved that idea. They hadn't heard of that before. And we told them that was already being proposed for another part of town using CPC funds. And they're very familiar with CPC funds because they've applied many times for that to support some of their work. Those were the ideas we had, but I would love to know if other people younger than Ann and I would be excited about this site because of something that had to do with maritime history, but that would draw your family, your kids, your grandkids to the site. Or are we imagining something that is exciting to us and not to the other folks on the committee? I think I would really like to hear that discussion.
I think it is an exciting property. I think George Meservey, pointed us towards it over the summer. So when I think about it, I think, not right downtown, but certainly close to downtown. I love that the town hall is right there, and the baseball field. I think I said last time, my kids are always have games there Sunday afternoons when the weather's good. So it can, there could be a little bit of a campus feeling to it with different generations doing different things. One thing that I thought of with the little boat replicas, and if they're climbing structures, is I know that there had been some thought as to whether or not the playground by Eldridge Park could be the home for a splash pad. And that might be, my kids are, well, they might not be too old for it, depending on how quickly you can get it up and what kind of mood they're in. But when my kids were little, splash pads, were the few that we hit in Cambridge and Boston on trips up there on hot days. I mean, it was like taking them to Disney World without having to go that far.
What's
that
a splash pad?
So it's like you can, I can send you pictures. They're pretty popular. I don't know how many there are on the Cape, but there are at least a few more central, like maybe Osterville and that area. But it's kind of a big, I think it could be any size, but a place with water spurting up. And the water turns off and turns on, and sometimes there are things that you can stand on and spin, and you never know when the water's coming up, and you can sit on the water spout and get sprayed right up your shirt, and you can stick your, I mean, it's not COVID friendly now that I think about it. We'll have to wait until the pandemic is far behind us. But so not COVID friendly, but super, super fun, and a real draw and not something that we have. And as I say, even though it's designed for, I think, preschool and younger elementary, I am pretty sure my 11-year-old would be happy to, if they're playing baseball on a hot day, to run over afterwards and
Okay.
take a
Yeah.
spin through the splash pad. It just might go with the maritime
There's
theme.
Water.
there's one in Mashpee. I just
Okay.
Googled it. It's very cool.
Yeah, they're really neat.
That would be so fun. God.
Yeah.
I
like
think it
that
would
idea.
it might make it a little more of a destination
Yeah.
too, in terms of people coming from other towns.
Yeah.
And again, it would be a fun,
I wonder,
connection to the, with the boats, it kind of makes sense.
water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to say, Cal, I wonder if that's something that Alan could send out a survey for to the people that to all the younger families with kids and what they would see happening there, because, we're far out of it. But I just think maybe the more input we get, the better before we go down that path.
Oh, absolutely.
We did talk
Yeah.
about that, and Maxine Minkoff, because of her connection to the schools, is
Right.
very much in favor of reaching out, literally having kids have ideas as well. Yeah. And the water
Yeah,
theme
I like that idea. Yeah.
is Carol and I know a lot about Celebrate Our Waters, which didn't
Right,
happen
yeah.
last year, but it's a major Orleans event. And anyway, there's a lot of water theme that could, I'm the oldest one sitting around right here, and I would use it.
Oh yeah, it's there's one there's one across within walking distance of the Boston Science Museum. That's the one that we have frequented.
Oh, yeah. I think there might be one on the Rose Kennedy Greenway too.
And there is.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. We
okay.
haven't done that one yet, but you're right. There
Okay.
is one there.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
great idea. So we would have to ask, because the area that was where the police station trailer was under construction, if you recall that,
Mhm.
is actually the what do you call it? The septic tank field, the leaching field for the town hall.
Okay.
So there's already pipes under there and you can't build a building on top of there, but you certainly could do something next to it.
Mhm.
Anyway, anybody else have any other
Yeah.
things that sort of excite you?
Anne, did you?
Well, I was just going to add one point we should make is that at the end of our meeting, we alluded to the possibility that we would jointly go for CPC money for a design.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can think of picnic tables and you can think of, marine history themed bike racks and play structures, and those are clear. But then the programming, that's, we would not be doing that, but we would, the show folks would, and Alan might partner with them. I don't know, something. Okay,
Yeah,
so it
no.
sounds,
I don't have any original ideas, but I just want to put a plug in for that splash pad idea.
yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. Having kids at ages 10 and 8, they still enjoy that at these
Yeah.
ages. And we
Cool.
enjoy it as parents. It would be something incredibly unique and another way
Right.
to enjoy water for kids in a safe way without having to, go
Yeah.
out into the ocean or whatnot. So
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
great for young families with little kids. And
Great idea.
a way to pull people to a part of town they might not go to otherwise.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I really like the work that you guys are doing, and I think that that's a creative idea to at least look into the splash pad.
I would like to say, let's look at the splash pad. If it can't go there, where can it go?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know Jamie Ballier had looked into, as I said, near Eldridge Park. So it would be worth talking to. I think he ended up either not having the space or not having this right space or the fun. I can't remember why, but certainly, he's already started to do some of the research, and I think he would be a great partner on this.
Yeah. And it's very intergenerational, not only because I'd use it, but taking grandkids there is a big deal.
Well, and it is an easy, I would think, having benches along the side, almost like a playground where kids can run around, and then have shaded, an area with shaded benches for adults who want to take a break. That's always, that might be a good thing to have too. But yeah, I think that could be fun. I think it sounds, we do my kids' piano recitals in that building, and it is such a great space in town. Every spring when we're there, I'm newly intrigued by that building. It's a great history that we have it right there. So I think drawing more attention to it and bringing more people there is a really worthy project. Yeah. I'm glad that we can do it.
And they're very much talking about leaving a legacy. They feel like they're the stewards right now, and they really want it to live on beyond them and useful. So if we were voting, would you agree with the way that the partnership agreement's written if we weren't going to ask the question about COA? Are you comfortable with how specific it is or how general it is?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Do you want us to take a vote on it?
Mm-hmm.
You think so, Anne? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So help me out, maybe how we work in the.
I make a motion. How's that? Make a motion that we vote to accept and let the CHO know that we like the partnership statement and look forward to the partnership.
A second?
Second.
Joan, any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne?
Aye.
Joan?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Evan?
Aye.
Okay, terrific. Great. Thank you so much for your work on that. It's exciting. And I think now that we're at a place where we can, where we're kind of waiting on CPC, it's exciting to start to dig into a new project. So thank you, Anne and Carol, for all of your legwork. And speaking of CPC, Joan.
Okay. Really quick. So everything's going to be in the town meeting to vote on. So all our projects got approved to put forward for the town meeting, which is very exciting. But what I really want to stress is people should start working on how can they kick off their project. You'll have the money in July, and especially for the basketball court, Tracy, because there might be a possibility there could be more money coming in October because the finances are not known yet. So if there is more money in October, we can ask for money to start building the basketball court if we have the engineering study done versus waiting another year.
Okay.
So, all of us should just get with our partners and be ready to go as soon as we could start and go from there. So for Tracy and Sharon, the basketball court would be the biggest thing. And then, we're not going to work on CPC stuff yet for the following year, but I do think I'm going to propose, not this meeting, maybe in 2 meetings, but that we ask for a general bucket of money like the housing has and conservation has, so that we have money to do engineering studies on an ongoing basis versus asking for $40,000. So really a bucket so that we don't have to keep waiting for a year, and just act like all the other partners that receive CPC funds.
Okay.
So an ongoing bucket of money would be great. But that's really where we stand. That all went well. The only change was Carol's. We actually took out the number of
Yay.
because it was written as though it would go into 5, and Meph and I were like, we just don't know yet. So we just said the money was there and we didn't put a number in. All the other ones stayed as they were.
Okay.
So
Great.
that's the update.
Okay.
Joan, thank you for your
Yes.
hard
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
It's
And Meth
easy
too,
this
but
year.
he's gone.
Did you just say it was easy?
Yeah, it was easy
Oh
this
my
year. We had
Well,
such great projects. Nothing was controversial. I mean, I think Ann's was the most controversial, the kayaks. But you weren't asking for a ton of money. So
That's
it's
Yankee
enough to,
understatement.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it was a great, I think both a really great learning experience for those of us who hadn't ever applied before. I remember last year Kyle saying it's easy, just get something in there, and sort of thinking, I don't know how easy it sounds, but it was both a great learning experience, but also a really great source of energy for the committee. And I think Carol pointed out that the FinCom discussed our budget that we'll talk about. So I was watching the meeting this morning, and FinCom talked about our CPC applications. So I think it's sort of become part of our calling card to, now to sort of raise the profile of the committee and what's possible. And in so doing, to raise the profile of recreation in Orleans. It's been a really great experience. So thank you for being our leader.
You're welcome. I do think we should partner with Judy and look at recreation for seniors and intergenerational for next year and really see what we can come up with, because there's such an opportunity there, and CPA can only be used for outdoor, but there is still so much. I think of that water idea you have, and it's like,
right. Yeah, there's a lot we could do.
Right.
Yeah, good. Great.
That's it.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Select board update. This seems like eons ago, but on February 24th, Sharon and Ann and I attended the select board meeting. It was very, very positive. I was very grateful, for the whole committee for the support in preparation, and then for Sharon and Ann for being there. We did end up figuring out the confusion about the 135 hours versus 105 hours that there was, that the plan was to take that $9,000 out of the revolving fund, and that will not happen now. So we've kind of gone back to those 4 hours as being part of an essential service that the town runs, and shouldn't come out of the revolving fund. The revolving fund should be for new programming. We also clarified and resolved the revolving fund versus the, taking a $20,000 cut in our budget and being left with the revolving fund that wasn't actually revolving very much because we were in the middle of a pandemic. So that was clarified and resolved in the form. And I hope I'm making sense. The form by which that was resolved is in the creation of a new position in the rec department, a 20-hour-a-week position for, I think it's a to be named title, but something along the lines of a community coordinator, someone who would be a liaison to the schools and the COA and other entities and committees in town to make sure that we're using and sharing facilities when we can, that we're using and sharing resources, both physical resources and people, people power, that when Mark Matheson brought up childcare at town meeting being run by the people who do the after school program at the elementary school. So just someone whose job would be to find opportunities for collaboration and sharing, and to help us realize the idea of a community center without walls. Someone who could start doing that work, that community work, before we have an actual building. So that the funding for that position is available July 1st. I think, I know it's July something. And the committee will have some sort of seat at a table with the job description, although I'm not sure exactly what the next step is there. But it was a really positive, encouraging meeting. And I am very grateful for the generosity of the select board in making a place for recreation and making that place in their budget in a year that's a challenging one fiscally, and when so many people are making cuts, that they really are setting, understanding and appreciating the role that recreation plays, and that it is essential and it's not something that should be put on hold. So it was a great meeting. Other questions or thoughts or anything?
I think you guys did a phenomenal job. Sharon, you were amazing.
Yes.
And you found those dollars that no one else could find. It really was so eye-opening to everyone in that meeting. You guys really rocked it. It was great. And when you talk about this new person, I got so excited when Judy talked about that coast that they have.
Yes.
That all the towns, they learn and they share resources. It could be so empowering if we follow a lot of what Judy's doing for our rec program with someone that's focused on that.
Yes.
So it's a big win for us. It really
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It's growth in the department, and strengthens the department, but also the community at large. And as we think more holistically and about forming connections, this could be the person whose job is to make all of that stuff come true. So I think it could be really exciting.
Connect a lot of silos.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Get us into those school gyms and beyond.
Oh, well done, you two. That's great.
Oh, it was very good. Okay. And then I added Charter Review Committee to the agenda earlier this week because I heard from the Charter Review Committee. So we have been bouncing the idea of committee, commission, charge, charter, lots of words that I then go and Google to try and figure out exactly what they mean. And I think as we think about our goals for our work, we've talked about whether that requires changing the charge, changing to a commission, and we don't have a lot of clarity still. So last month, MEF, in the December meeting, MEF said the next step was to talk to the Charter Review Committee. I reached out to John Fuller at that time, and he said the way to do it was to submit a formal letter. That's what I sent along this week. That was my letter in January, when we were leaning more towards, yes, we need to go the commission route. I think at maybe it was at the January meeting, we thought maybe we don't have to. So there's still a lot to figure out, but this, now we have a seat at the table to get some answers to those questions and figure out if a commission does make sense, and what the Charter Review Committee is doing and how it could affect what we're able to do. So they can put us on their agenda on April 5th. It's a 5:30 meeting. And I am wondering if anyone would like to accompany me, and what questions we'd like answered.
I have a question, Tracy, though. I'm wondering, now that we do have a lot of support from the select board and we have a second spot and we're making progress, I sort of wonder if we should reevaluate if it's commission, or are we doing enough now as an advisory board that we can now move forward from what we're doing? Because I do think there was a lot of leaps and bounds this year that got us really, you and Ann leading this, really got this team in such a good spot. I don't know if you need to go down the commission path right now.
I don't know that we do either. And I think that I think in the January meeting, I went back, I've done a lot of Channel 18 the past few days. And in the December meeting, when we were talking, MEF said, it sure sounds like what you're talking about is a commission. And then in the January meeting, as we continued to talk, I think it was also MEF who brought up some of the things about it being a commission that we might see as downsides. So I totally agree with you. I think that the journey continues, but that going ahead and meeting with them doesn't commit us to
Okay.
pursuing a commission, but it might just resolve some of these questions so that we can make a decision. And maybe we decide it's not right now, but at least to know, so that if in a year or two, I don't know that we can do it in a year or two, we'll find that out too. But to just, I need, even just for my own personal understanding, just to fill in some of the gaps in our understanding of the difference between a commission and a committee, what becoming a commission entails, just so we can proceed,
Okay.
totally set it aside, or say not right now, but maybe someday, or say now that we hear, we're on, fully on board and we want to do it. So I would think that we could talk about it in April, at our April whatever meeting, that at that point we'll be able, that's what I'm hoping, is that we can bring this sort of information that will allow us to either put this to bed or get ready to move forward. And
Okay.
And at last night's select board meeting, I heard Meph, I caught a little bit of it, and I heard Meph say, I think the Recreation Advisory Committee should be working on their charge rather than going to the charter. You know what I was thinking about as I was listening to Judy? I mean, she is, Orleans is so lucky to have her.
Yeah.
There's really three kind of entities. There's commissions, there's advisory committees, and there are committees or boards. And I know Judy, I've been doing things with her or asking her something, and she'll say, well, if it were up to me, I would, but let me check with my board.
right.
And maybe this meeting, you'll be able to have people tell you a little bit about if you can say, what are the goals, and this is what it would look like. But I also remember, I think last month, Carol talked about restructuring, that we're thinking about recreation as a different structure, in a sense, as opposed to an afterthought in this corner, as something more community-wide. And could that be part of the conversation of, if I meant, and I haven't done this, I meant to look in the charter where, so suppose, not that I'm saying this, but suppose that recreation was pulled out from DPW and put somewhere where Council on Aging is at that level, who knows? But is that a charter thing, or is it a select board thing, or what, how might that change if it meant we would achieve our goals or function a little differently?
Okay, so the restructuring would be something to clarify. Anything else other than just the basics of
Yeah.
commission, Carol?
I think this is probably a basic, but what's the difference between the Conservation Commission and the Health Commission? Health commissioners are elected. They're enforcing the state law. Conservation commissioners are commissioners. They're enforcing the wetland law, but they're not elected. They're just appointed.
Are they appointed?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've never voted for them. So
Yeah.
I don't understand if what was a commission, what's the other one? But they both have
Right.
the name commission. So I
Both
think that would be a good
regular-
example to say,
Yeah.
can you clarify?
I'll have to see what I can do
And
to
actually,
lower,
Board of Health
lower
is
their
Board of Health.
expectations before I
Yeah.
get there.
That's
Yeah,
right.
It's gonna be a lot of
and-
basic, yeah.
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 I don't know.
No, but I agree. And recreation was a commission before this committee was reformed. It was. the
Oh, is that
recrea-
right? Oh.
Yes. So
was.
when our committee, when the select board voted on our charge, a couple of the select board members brought up, why are we doing a committee? It used to be a commission. Why wouldn't we do another commission.
Hmm.
So, so it's worth, I just think it's worth pursuing and
Right.
hopefully,
Now I understand.
hopefully
guess I
they'll be
didn't-
patient with me when I show up and
No,
say,
I didn't
we're just gonna be-
understand what the
yeah.
meeting was about and for, but do you think we can end in 8 minutes for 8 o'clock by chance? Okay.
yes, absolutely. Anything, so I'm happy to do this one on my own and report back my findings. If anyone isn't doing anything on April 5th at 5:30 and wants to join me, you're always welcome. Any other comments or questions on that? Anne?
I just would want to know if we were a commission, what kind of responsibilities would we be stuck with?
Right. Okay. Future agenda items. I have one, which is that for the April meeting, we'll have a final draft of a warrant article for a feasibility study for the community center that the select board is, the town administrator is putting together. So we'll be discussing that in April, but just as an update for those of you who have been wondering what's happening, that's the next step. Sharon?
I'm just wondering, I was looking back at the notes from a year ago, and we needed to put in the warrant that we wanted to continue the revolving fund. Do we need to do that every year? And if so, do we have to make sure that it's included?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Sharon, can you come run my finances?
I
can't run my own.
Well, when you started with, I was looking back through the minutes from a year ago, I thought, oh my gosh, this has got to be pretty good.
Good.
That's
important because
that
the
is
one
important.
votes. Yeah.
Yes. Is Kevin the one Kevin Galligan, or do I go to John Kelly?
I think you can just ask Matt and he can
Okay.
tell him to get it done for us.
Okay. Yeah, I know we still have, I think it's,
Good work, Sharon.
yes, thank
Well,
you,
we can use
Sharon.
Kyle's wording from last year, I'm sure.
Yes.
On the agenda for next month, let's put down metrics. I will send Alan, get his stuff this week and get his codes from my rec and see what I could pull together.
Okay.
And send out the documents in advance so people could read them. And we could take a look. And then maybe next month we could talk about brainstorming some intergenerational programs, because I would love to have some of that up and ready for the summer and get some ideas beforehand. Maybe we can bring ideas in for what they could be.
Anne?
Would it be an appropriate meeting, since you would be reviewing April 5th, to also bring the charge draft? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay, if anyone else has any ideas, you know where to find me.
Thanks, Tracy. It was a great meeting.
It was a
Oh,
good
very
meeting. It was
good.
very, thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll look for a motion to adjourn. We're gonna get in under, I'd hoped
Adjourn.
for 7:30 tonight, not quite, but it's a goal. My dog's done.
Dog.
I'll look for a second.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
good night, everyone. Thank you, thank you,
Aye.
thank you.